Usually I think I do pretty well at making scripts for videos and really crafting them before I record. This is not one of those times. This is me rating Kingdom Hearts characters based on their cooking skills. I feel like Sora can make simple dishes like eggs and bacon, but if you push him to make something more complex like spaghetti, he'd burn your house down. 3 out of 10. Riku was once pretty bad in the kitchen, but he's been buying some really expensive cookbooks with his master money that he uses sometimes, and now he's a little better. 5 out of 10. I feel like Kairi used to be a 3 out of 10 like Sora, but she spent all that time with Merlin learning how to make some fairly complicated dishes, and now she can also improvise sometimes, and sometimes it turns out alright. 7 out of 10. Aqua's a master with the Keyblade and a master in the kitchen. She consistently makes masterpieces and could probably open up her own place if she wanted to. All of this started when she started stress baking from having to look after Terra and Ventus. 10 out of 10. Terra wants to be a better cook but can't really figure out how to make eggs. He sees Aqua throwing down and tries to prove that he's just as good as she is. He has since been banned from the Land of Departure kitchen ever since he tried to use water to put out a grease fire. 2 out of 10. Ventus used to be a 2 out of 10 since he spent all of his days in the data world eating code for dinner, but then he learned everything he needs to know by watching Aqua and since become a fairly decent cook. 5 out of 10. Shiona's never really been interested in cooking, but she became more interested and started learning how to after watching Axel and Roxas. She has since become a pretty okay cook. 5.5 out of 10. Alright, Axel tries to have a hard exterior, but deep down, I think we all know he's one of the best chefs you'll ever see in your life. He decided to learn how to cook after learning he could use his own flames and has since become nothing short of a gourmet chef. 10 out of 10. Roxas inherited all of his cooking skills from Sora, but has since learned how to successfully make sea salt ice cream. 4 out of 10. Sykes is a decent cook, but not as good as Axel. That's why he's so condescending to Axel whenever you see them together, because he knows he can't beat him in the kitchen. Still does alright for himself though. 5 out of 10. Goofy used to be a terrible cook, but is currently studying up since he wants to make good meals for his son Max when he comes home after the series is over. He spends his gummy ship rides watching YouTube videos learning how to make food that his son will like. 6.5 out of 10. I feel like Donald consistently makes fun of Sora for not being able to cook, but he can't really cook himself. Every time he gets confused making a recipe, he destroys everything and doesn't clean up after himself. 1 out of 10. Mickey always had servants to cook for himself and has never made a meal for himself in his life. 0 out of 10. Now, you'd think Naminé would be a 10 out of 10 considering all she does is spend time in a room by herself, but since she spends most of her time drawing, she's actually a terrible cook who can barely make anything edible. 2 out of 10. Now, some of you might not know this, so I'm going to give you some true insider information here, but there was a huge mistranslation in Kingdom Hearts. Young Xehanort actually left Destiny Islands because he already owned his own 5-star restaurant and he wanted to expand his culinary horizons. And at some point when he was building up his name in Scala as a world-class chef, he wanted to become a Keyblade master and that's when he started. He makes souffles sometimes when he's not thinking about darkness. 10 out of 10. After thinking about darkness for the last 75 years, his cooking skills fell off hard. He kind of remembers how to cook, but he doesn't have nearly as much skill as he used to. He's also dead. 5 out of 10. Lexius, or Alias, is a silent character, but his cooking skills speak for themselves. Man can really throw down on the grill if you ask him to and not say a word while he's doing it. 8 out of 10. Another silent character, but not nearly as good a cook as Lexius. He does alright for himself though and can make some pretty basic dishes. 5 out of 10. This man could not cook to save his life. He thinks he's as good as Lexius, but in reality throws random ingredients together thinking it's going to be amazing, but it barely turns out edible. 1 out of 10. Zexion follows every recipe to the letter and gets everything right. He doesn't know how to season his food though, so everything he makes tastes like an untitled document. 5 out of 10. This man's actually a pretty decent cook. When he cooks for himself, he can make a pretty solid meal. But he makes sure nobody's around when he cooks and acts like he's terrible so he'll never have to cook for others. 6 out of 10. I feel like Larxine's actually a halfway decent cook. I feel like she can make a solid meal but gets a little aggressive with the spices, so it kind of throws it out of balance. 7 out of 10. Demyx has never cooked for himself a day in his life and will continue to bum meals off of everyone he comes across. 0 out of 10. Now, not a lot of people know this, but Lauriam spent his days in the Age of Fairy Tales cooking for his sister. He used to be a solid 10 out of 10. Now he's not as good as he used to be, but he can still bring something to the organization potluck. 8 out of 10. Luxord gambled all his money away at casinos and gacha games and can never afford ingredients to cook for himself. The man looks like he can make a mean key lime pie though, so I'm giving him a 4 out of 10. Being a part of Xehanort, the man inherited his skills but never ended up cooking for himself since he had other things to worry about. He still treats himself on his days off from running the organization though. 9 out of 10. Ansem's also a part of Xehanort, so his cooking skills are also top notch, but he spends most of his time harassing Riku, so he never really kept up with it. 7.5 out of 10. Vanitas can cook decently for himself, but burns the food he makes for others on purpose. 4 out of 10. Ava would be the best chef of the foretellers, but everyone thinks they know better, so they really bring her down, and she doesn't know how to tell them that she knows what she's doing. 7 out of 10. I feel like Eric can do alright for himself. He's not the best cook, but he's willing to take criticism and learn from his mistakes. 6 out of 10. Asad couldn't make cereal if you gave him Frosted Flakes, a bowl, and a gallon of milk, but genuinely thinks he's better than Ira. 1 out of 10. Envy is almost as good as Ava, but has some trouble correctly seasoning her food. 6 out of 10. Gula can make sandwiches and some pretty simple dishes, but that's about it. He's never willing to admit he's a bad cook though. 4 out of 10. The Master of Masters is a top tier chef, but always tricks the foretellers into making too much so he can eat that instead of cooking for himself. The man could throw it down with Xehanort and Aqua in the kitchen though. 9 out of 10. Now, Nomura told me this himself, so this is super top secret classified pinky swear you'll never tell information. When Yozora said he was going to save Sora, he never finished his sentence. He wanted to say he was going to save Sora from bad cooking, and that's why he pulled out his favorite cooking knife and his spatula before Sora attacked him. Yozora is a pretty good chef with food so good you'll think it's unreal. 10 out of 10. I feel like Ephemer wasn't a good cook to begin with, but when he became the leader, he stepped up his game in the kitchen and became a halfway decent chef. 6.5 out of 10. Skuld was always a better chef than Ephemer and only continued to get better. 7.5 out of 10. Brain's the best chef in the group, but decides to tone it down when he's cooking for others so they don't feel bad about themselves. 10 out of 10. Ericus in his Dark Road days survived off of ramen like a college kid and only learned how to cook when he got older. But when he met her, he relied on Aqua to do most of the cooking and only trained her in exchange for her services as a chef. 4 out of 10. These guys relied on Xehanort to do all the cooking, and they're the reason he got pushed to darkness in the first place. He got tired of them never learning how to cook for themselves. They're also dead. 0 out of 10. Yo, this video was so stupid. But thanks for watching anyway, yo. I appreciate it. For now, this is Moose Wayne, signing off.